Welcome back, Raw Thoughts listeners, to another episode with me, Mackenzie Tiggs. Today, I have Tina with us. She is just a spitball of fire. I have got to meet her through Lululemon. She is an ambassador. She's just a kick-ass woman. So thank you for coming on, Tina.
That was a fantastic introduction. Thank you. No, I'm so excited to be here. Let's get into it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, I know most of kind of your story, but you being a young female, how you grew up and like where that's brought you to today.
Yeah. So born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Single. Raised by a single mom. Parents divorced when I was around 2 years old. No siblings, so I am an only child, and I don't know if that's gonna sound good or bad to people, but yeah, and I've been an athlete since I was younger, played basketball, kind of coming from a divorced parents, I've kind of bounced around a lot. Always had a ton of friends, so very grateful for that. So it's been kind of like my personality, just drawn to people. But I think the background of how I was raised and the situations that I was put into definitely makes me the person and woman that I am today. Never really had like a stable household, right? Like, you know, I'd go see my dad on the weekends, hang out with my mom during the week. Also, I'm half Filipino, so we have like a huge family. So I'd be at my aunt's house, and then with basketball, you know, we'd be at tournaments every weekend. But it was just me. I'd be with my teammates a lot and my friends and staying at their house. So I think the biggest thing was just the bouncing around with no stability kind of per se. So it taught me a lot about finding that like balance for myself, because I think I'm always in search of like stability and like schedule and routine. Yeah, exactly. So that definitely has a huge play into kind of how I am now and like what I'm doing now. Yeah.
What would you say? I feel like a lot of teens right now in life are having just so much difficulty. What would you say, like, how did you learn that as a child to take that as a positive and to learn to lean on other people and be supported by other people instead of taking it as such a negative aspect and being literally saying like, I want to kill myself? Like, I feel like kids are at that point right now in their lives.
100% agree. Actually was just recently talking to a younger female about like feeling lost and things like that. And, you know, for me, like, I kid you not, I probably didn't realize this stuff until like last year. Like I'm 27. And throughout my childhood and teenage years, like I struggled hardcore. I felt, even though I was surrounded by big family and like my teammates who were family and my friends who were always around, like even though like I was an only child, I never felt alone. But you know, I'd come back to my room or wherever I was at and feel super lonely, because it's like you know, your parents are divorced, you don't have any siblings, and you're bouncing around from your friend's house, your aunt's house or whatever with no stability. And really just, I kid you not, I was able to do whatever I wanted. Luckily, I had basketball and sports that kept me so on track. But yeah, I didn't realize until now that I saw it as such a negative thing when I was younger that it ate me up, right? I didn't do any therapy or anything like that. I just consumed it all and told myself all these bad things like, no, your family is not stable, nobody wants you, kind of, you know, you have all these friends, but at the end of the day, it's you. And I've literally been telling myself that up until like this point where I realized, where I was like, you know what, like that situation and how I grew up was what it was, you know. And you kind of have to put yourself in a position now where you look around at your life and it's what you build, right? Like I think anybody who goes through hard times as a, you know, in your childhood, you can make the situation what it is. I could have led my life up into this point. I don't want to say making excuses, but just, you know, those negative thoughts that you tell yourself that nobody cares about you, nobody wants you, whatever, it's just you, and it consumes you. But you really do have the opportunity and the choice to get out of that mindset and put actions forth to not be that person that tells yourself that, because you look around, it's like you're not alone. Like, you know, you surround yourself with good people and you form a little community or whatever. It's like you do have people in your life that care about you, and even if it's not on the level per se that you want, maybe they care. And those thoughts that you're telling yourself in your head, they're wrong. You know, like everybody matters, no matter what position you're in, what you do, who you are. Like, you are put on this earth for a reason, and your life matters. And now I feel like I'm going into a hardcore tangent on the question you did not ask me.
That is fine. That is fine. You can totally, because I think that comes back to, you know, you have been that teen that was lost. You've been that female, you know, in college that was lost. And there's people in those positions right now that I know listen. And so that's kind of where that question comes from, is like, how can we be able to help them? And I think, you know, you reminding them is that, like, you know, at the end of the day, we do go to sleep and we are with ourselves. We are with ourselves 100% of the time. And what we're telling ourselves matters. And when, you know, like you had said about, you know, your parents, like, oh, well, because they're divorced, that can also come so much on children, where they're like, oh, my parents got divorced because of me. I'm the problem. This is me. Like, I wasn't worthy enough to have a sibling, or like they, you know, like you said, all of those lies just start stacking up. And then that becomes not only your mindset, that becomes what your thoughts are and what you consume. And that's kind of the dangerous part. So you're this athlete in LA, divorced parents. What did you do after high school?
So, well, I think even in high school, I went to 3 different schools, all honestly tailored around basketball. Basketball was like my life. Like, anyone who asked me, like, what made you who you are today? And it's freaking sports. So in high school, you know, I went to a charter school first that my dad actually forced me to go to when he came back into my life. That's another. But I did it for a year and then transferred to a public school because I wanted to play basketball, because at the first school they didn't have basketball. So that was like huge for me. And then things didn't work out there. And then transferred to another school to finish out, and then with hopes of going D1, you know, whatever. And that didn't work out. I mean, I still played in college, but not at a D1 school. But so after high school, I actually went to a community college, which was like another thing, which I think is important to talk about. Like, I remember being in high school and that being so looked down upon, that like, oh, you're going to a community college. Like, you're not going to go to like a nice undergrad like USC or, you know, something like that. And which I'm so grateful I did, because I needed those like 2 years to kind of get my shit together. So after high school, I went and played for this college with the hopes of, you know, like playing there for a little bit and then transferring to a D1 school. So I went there, played there for 2 years, and that was just another like pivotal transitional time, right? As you get older, you know, you go through whatever you do in high school, and then it's like, now you're college. And so how old was I? 18, 17. And I still was like struggling with the same things of like, you know, it was further away from home, which I was excited about. But I still went through those like thoughts of like, okay, because it's crazy. I look back at my life and like all of my closest friends, they have such stable households, and I think that I was naturally drawn to that because like I was always yearning for that stability. But yeah, like all of my teammates come from great families, great parents, like even helped shape me into the person that I am today, because I lived with some of them, just bouncing around, and learned so much in that time too, with when I was playing basketball, like trying to be playing in you know, starting 5, or, you know, because you had older gals who were already seniors or whatever, and then battling through that. So just a lot of like working through your young shit, right? Like the partying. What do you want to do after, you know, you're done playing at this school? But in my head the whole time I was like, no, like basketball is it for me. I'm going D1. I don't know if I was going to do the WNBA or anything like that. But like when you're an athlete like that, you're so competitive, and it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because you just drive yourself into day in, day out. You know, our workouts were 2 a day. And then you have your academics on top of it. And the whole time that I was playing for that school, like I wasn't thinking about academics. Like I kid you not, I think I even failed like a movie class where all we did was watch. It's like, you know, so it's like I'm glad that I had the time to realize that, you know, just kind of like figure things out. But I was so my mentality was so about basketball and my friends and like that social life. But again, like I learned actually that's when I first started talking about my mental health problems with my best friends who are still my best friends today. My one of my really, really good friends, she was the first person that I opened up to about all of my childhood shit, all the trauma, the divorce, the like not feeling like I'm deserving or anything like that. And I remember her like clearly, actually, it was on one of my birthdays, and we were like in her car, and I just like broke down crying, like venting to her. And that was seriously the first time that I just like let it out. And then from there, it really helped me like trust, because that was the other thing too, is like I was very, very closed off, not talking about your personal stuff, only focusing on your sport, and that's it, which is a distraction, right, for what is going on in my head. And that was like the first time I remember like, oh wow, like somebody actually does care about my problems. I trust this person, and I felt so much better after. Or like for 18 years I was carrying all this like just hatred towards myself, hatred towards my family. The distraction was just grind. And so I feel like, you know, I had my fun with sports and you know, you do your little partying or whatever. But then I think like a big breakthrough in that time period was just like the trust and talking and being open and knowing that it's okay. Like I feel like young kids now, if they don't have that proper support system, it's like it just takes one person to like open up to, and that changed the game. That changed the game for me, because then it allowed me to be like, hey, like I know that I could trust this person. I have other people in my life who show me that they care about me. They go out of my way, out of their way for me. And maybe like I can just like be more open about my problems, and it's not. And then I found out that like other people are going through the same thing too, where it's like, you know, like I had other friends who were also product of divorced families, or, you know, everyone has their own issues. And it's like, it makes your problems, not that they're any less, but it's like, not trying to make it like a distraction, but it's like, dang, okay, you're young like that. You don't think that, you only think about you and your problem, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think it also helps validate of like, hey, I'm going through this and this is hard.
Yeah.
And they're also going through something, and that's hard, and that's their own issue, but we can help each other out along the way. And I think that's the part of life where we want to be there for people to celebrate, but are we also there for people in their struggles?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the stuff that's not, you know, and these young kids too, like they go on TikTok, on Instagram, and even like I'm even guilty of, you know, I don't share all the like dark deep secrets on my Instagram. You're mostly gonna see like, I mean, I try, you know, I'm pretty real on my Instagram, but like you're gonna see the celebratory stuff. And then, you know, when you're young like that, and that's all you see is like, okay, then your other shit that really is the issue is like you don't want to talk about that or show people that because it's not celebrated, right? But I think it's the breakthrough of like understanding that you shouldn't just talk about your wins, like the losses too, and the struggles that you go through is what actually make your wins, you know, and that's what should be celebrated for sure. And that, even that, saying that didn't click for me until like recently, where it's like, you know, you want to put, I think in my background too is so performance based, right? Like to my coaches, to my teammates, you know, like my position, I was a shooting guard and point guard, and it was always about like, you know, setting up the plays and, you know, hitting the threes when we needed it or whatever. So it's like, that's also the side of sports too, that like, you know, everything has its pros and cons, but like everyone just wants to celebrate the wins and the fun stuff. But the fun stuff should be being able to work through your problems, because if you don't do it, like I wish, and I'm sure everybody says this, that like when you were younger, if I would have started for real therapy when I was like in my teens, all of the mental health that I went through, even till now in the 20s, and I know even later 30s, 40s, whatever, like would just been so much better. And those thoughts that you tell yourself, and it gets close to like, you know, I mean, luckily, like I haven't gone through, you know, like having like, you know, those suicidal thoughts or anything like that. You know, I've been close to it, but it's like anybody can go through that. And because at the change of a second, your life alters. And then it's like, okay, what did you have the proper tools? Do you have the support system to talk about these things? Because I know that there's people out there that don't have right. that at all. Or even, you know, everyone has access to the internet, but it's like, what resource are you looking up? Yes. That too, which is obviously why I love what you do, because it's like just talking about stuff and looking in the right way. Like even, you know, you go on TikTok and it's not like, of course there's people that posts good things, but like right. the way I'm sure like the algorithm works, if you're a young kid and you're searching up, watching all these things, that's all you're going to be seeing. And then you don't have the support system. And then your mind is just like, man, if I had something like TikTok when I was like young, I don't know. That'd be kind of scary. Like TikTok's so cool, but it's also kind of scary. I mean, the internet is just like,
the internet is scary, and it also, I mean, social media in all of its facets that it has, and I think there's a lot of different things that come up with the negativity of the comparison of, and this can happen at any age. Like I can get myself caught up in this too, where it's the comparison game of like, oh, well, look at how many followers they have, or right. oh, look at what they're doing, or how are they, you know, pushing through this, or look at them, they just excelled at something again, and it feels like you just aren't doing enough, and then you try to hustle more, and then you get burnt out, and then, you know, all of these things just feel like the world is coming crashing down on you,
right?
And it kind of is. Yeah. You know, that pressure is putting on yourself. And I would love to sprinkle, if I was Oprah, I'd be like, and you get therapy, and you get therapy, and you get therapy.
You know, I also was the type of person, I looked at therapy in the most negative way. Like, I think because of the way that I was with my childhood and not, you know, having the stability, whatever, I just was this lone soldier and just like, no, like you work through your own shit. Like I don't need, it was almost like an ego thing where it's like I'm too good for therapy. Like I don't need to talk about my problems, when in reality, like that's so freaking childish. And so just like, you know, I think the pressure that people put on themselves, or like, you know, cause that's what I can relate in, is like, I'm somebody that, you know, I hate to even, like, I try not to say this as much anymore, but like, I'm not a little bitch. Like, and that's always been playing in my head since I was younger, through sports, through my issues with, you know, the way I was raised or whatever. It's like, suck it up. You're not a little bitch. Stop crying and work, grind. It doesn't matter. And as good as that could be, right? Because that's what made me, you know, who I am today, is that the mentality that, you know, I've always told myself is like, you don't give up, whatever, you keep going. But it also, of course, has its cons where it's like, you just go, and you don't think about it until you're 18, you have that first breakdown, or you're 27 now, and like these things come up and you're just like, what do you do? You know? So I think it's like a mixture of the perfect balance of having that pressure on yourself, or through, you know, like for the young kids now, like, you know, I would hope that the parents are giving the right amount of pressure, but also like, hey, it's okay. Like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to fuck up, you know, like, you know, I always, and when I coach and stuff, I always tell people like, like if they're, you know, I have a lot of clients that complain about the workouts that I put them through, and I love it. Like, if you're not complaining, I'm probably not doing my job right. But I always tell them like, look, you have two options. The more closer clients that I'm like, you can either be a little bitch, okay, or we can move through it and work through it, not by distracting, but like thinking about where is it burning in your body? What are you thinking in your head right now? What are you telling yourself, right? Because I think that's what I'm trying to do as like a coach. Is like, okay, I know that I can not be a little bitch and just work through my stuff, but am I actually thinking about why am I having these thoughts? Why don't I want to do this movement or talk about these things or whatever? Like, it's always that why behind everything that you do, which, you know, I'm sure we'll get into, but translates into why I love boxing so much, is because it makes you, and basketball, you have to think. It's not something that you can do where you just go through the motion. And I think that's like where I'm at in general these past couple years for me has been like, I want to be so intentional with everything that I do. So it's not you're just like running by wasting time. Because I'm sure even you look back and you're like, dude, I was just playing basketball like yesterday in high school. Yeah. And I'm not now, you know? And so it's like being more intentional with who you spend your time with, what you're doing throughout your day. As little as, are you scrolling through TikTok? Are you, I don't know, listening to your favorite podcast? Things like that. Yeah. You know?
I think it's super simple for us to say those things. And I think it's very simple for us to say like, hey, everything in life, you got to have intentions, you got to put forth. But how does Tina do that? Because I think that is something that it can be said. Yeah. But there's also the how to. Like, how do you actually do that? Yeah. And we'll talk about, too, like, how you got into boxing. Like, how did that actually occur?
Yeah. Yeah. I think answering that question before I go on my tangent.
You're like, I already know.
I think it's honestly just, like, the experience of things where it's like, okay, trial and error, where it's like, because I've been actively, like, thinking about, you know, because you don't just wake up and you don't just do something and it's perfect. Like, you go through shit and you learn from it, or you go through shit and you don't learn from it, right? Where it's like you're forced to do it again. So I think for me, like, being intentional with things and being the person I am or how I show up for people is through experience, and I know what makes me feel bad and I know what makes me feel good. I know what actions I do make other people feel bad, and I know what actions that I do that make people feel good. So I think it's about just the learning of, you know, and also remembering, like, I mean, I constantly ask myself when I do things, I'm like, is this in line with the type of person I want to be? Yes. Right. And it's the constant reminding myself, because I do think I have like a big ego, and I know, because I learned from therapy. My therapist, shout out Brandy, she told me that, you know, that your ego is like that, right? The inner child is what they say, and it's like always protecting. It's a form of protection no matter what. And it's good when you need it, but when you're in a safe space, it's like you can lower and you don't need it, because what are you being protected from? So I think I constantly just remind myself, and you freaking know when you're doing something that's not in line with your morals or your values or where you want to head into. So to wrap that up, I think it's just reminding yourself what you've been through, what you learned from it, and is your actions, what you're saying, or even what you're putting in your body, is it helping you get one day closer to whatever your goals?
Yeah. And I think it's, to kind of wrap up what you're talking about, is you also have to be able to reflect enough and have that self-awareness enough to be able to truly think, like, is what I'm doing good or bad? Yeah. Is it healthy or not? Yeah. Very simple. Yeah. Like, we humans love to overcomplicate. Oh my God, we overcomplicate everything, and I'm guilty of that. Yes. And so you talking about those intentions is like, you know, is this to who I want to become? And I think a lot of people don't know who they want to become. Right. How did you find boxing? Because that is a part of who you have become 100%. To this day. Yeah. So boxing, it actually... So again, right, I played basketball since I was younger. That basketball has been the savior, you know, and I did that all the way up until I was 20.
So, and this is kind of another like veer off topic, but in sports, like, and especially when I was playing, I was never taught how to be normal when you're done playing your sport. So at my last college, we have a term called NARP, and it stands for non-athletic regular person. So that's what they call you when you're done playing, at the collegiate level. And so when I was a NARP, I was so lost. I literally, like, my days just felt so boring, bland. I was like, I'm not competing for a title anymore. I'm not going to my 2-day workouts. I'm not, hold on, I was going to make a joke. Like, I'm not able to eat like 3 pies of pizza and not, gain all the weight or whatever. So, I was going through that and I was depressed. I felt like my whole identity had changed. Like, I wasn't that college athlete anymore. I wasn't an athlete in general. I was just a normal, non-athletic, regular person, which there's nothing wrong with people that don't play sports or played at the collegiate level or anything. So make sure that you hear that. But so I was kind of like searching. Like, I was like, well, one, I need to work out because that's all I know, but I didn't know how to work out, right? You have somebody telling you day in and day out how to do this exercise, how to do this lift, how to shoot this shot, whatever. So first step was like, okay, what am I going to do that's still fun? Like, of course I played still with my friends or whatever, but so I started getting into like just working out, and I'm like, just your basic, like, you show up at the gym and you kind of stand there and you're like, what the fuck do I do? Which I know everybody goes through. Like, you look at a machine and you're like, do I stand on that? Do I sit on it? Like, what am I supposed to do? So I went through that. And then I found group fitness. So then, it's like, is right in line with like, okay, I have somebody telling me what to do and they're yelling at me. And then, we do it for an hour and then we're done. So I kind of, I went to a couple little small gyms back at home. And then I met this guy who, he was coaching classes, but also did boxing. And, he just like, hey, put these gloves on. Like, do you want to try hitting the bag or whatever? And I was just like, of course, like, I've seen it. And it's kind of, I naturally was drawn to it anyways. I have this big personality. I just want to hit shit, you know? And then you're angry, young teen. You're like, let's fucking go. I want to hit something. So yeah, and we did a couple workouts together. Like, I sucked really bad, which is also was hard for me because I'm so competitive and I'm good at everything I do. So I just started doing that with him, and then it made me feel exactly how I felt when I was playing basketball. And I just remember like having the biggest just stress off of my shoulder, where I was like, oh my God, I found an outlet again, which is so important as a young person. Like, you need to have outlets like that are like healthy, right? Yeah. So I just started boxing and working out, and it completely like took over. Like, I still played basketball, whatever, but I just started doing that, and then moved out here, stopped for like a year, put on lots of weight. That freshman 15, but junior 15 was probably 30. And then found another gym out here, and it was kickboxing, boxing, all that stuff. So that's how I found boxing. I'm trying to remember where I started from. See, this is what happens. I go on these tangents, and then I'm like, wait, what?
That's all right.
It's my ADHD.
That's all right.
But yeah, so I felt really, really lost when I was done playing the sport. And then I found something else, luckily, that just reignited that and made me feel like an athlete again, and kept me on track with things. Because when you find something that is a skill, right, and you're not good at it, it makes you want to be better, which then to me naturally just applies to everything else, right? So it makes me, okay, when I, let's say go back to the college playing basketball days, I can't eat a whole pie of pizza like an hour before my basketball game because I'll throw up on the court. Like, little things like that. So it helped me get back into that mindset of like fueling my body, not staying up till, 3 a.m. because I need to work out and do my boxing routine in the morning. So, yeah.
Do you think it brought back that discipline of somebody else is not necessarily in control of you, but is keeping you accountable for that as well?
Like the coaching side?
Yeah.
Yes. And I think this is why I also love coaching so much, is because when you have somebody telling you what to do, teaching you these things, you look up to them, right? And you want to, I don't want to say like you want to, I mean, kind of like you want to do good for them because how I see it now, I didn't think like this when I was at that point in the stage is that, you know, this person we're trusting each other and they're leading me in something that's really, really hard and frustrating. So it definitely like, you know, I think even my high school basketball coach or my college basketball coach, it's like you're performing at a level that's for you, but it's not just for you. Like you have other people.
I was going to say you're fully a part of a team.
Yes.
You are responsible for yourself, but what you do also affects everybody else.
100%.
That is on your team.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is another reason why I love sports so much. And if I ever do have kids, they will definitely have to at least try. But yeah, and it's just the accountability. You don't want to let people down. You know, like I think that's to me one of my things, like one of the why I work so hard too is like you have people that count on you and you don't want to let anybody down because it's not, I don't think I should say like selfish, but like, you know, you're in a position where people do look up to you or rely on you or count on you, whatever. And it's like, okay, your actions matter because it's not just affecting you, it's affecting how the team plays out. But yeah, so boxing for me, like after playing basketball, definitely again made me feel like that. Like I know that I have a 6 a.m. workout. I have to show up, right? Because you have somebody who's waiting on you, even though like you're their client, you know what I mean? So and I think like, I don't even want to say specifically boxing. Like obviously boxing is my favorite thing in the world, but the group fitness, the workout, the accountability, like even if you know, I have friends that I work out with now. Like we worked out this morning and, you know, we're texting each other at night like, hey, I better see your ass at 6:30. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm going to show up at 6:30 because I have 2 other people who are relying on me, even though are they capable of doing the work on themselves? 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how the process has been for you to starting this business. And then we'll kind of step into what business that you have been starting.
Yeah. So I think I should probably talk about nursing.
I forgot about that.
I know, actually. Me too, right? Sometimes I forget. So yes, I'm actually a nurse, but I quit to be full-fledged, full-time in the fitness industry. So when I moved from California, I moved out here to go to Boise State. And at that time, you know, I got pushed into it. With, again, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I was in that position of being lost, right? So I was like, okay, a respectable profession that is going to make me money. Because my other background, too, is like I didn't grow up, you know, a little poor and stuff like that. So I wanted to make sure that I was stable. So I went into nursing, and during my last year in the nursing program is when I really found my fire and stuff for group fitness, because I started coaching and I started managing the studio while I was in nursing school.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? Like I look back and I'm like, dude, and I promise I was not taking anything. like literally I would, you know, you're in your program. I had my senior preceptorship where you have to do 200 hours. And then like my job was coaching and managing a studio. And like the shifts that I did for school were like night shifts. Yeah. And you know that from paramedic life. And anyway, so that's another tangent. But so I realized in my last year of nursing school that this is not what I want to do. I was like, you know, I knew I love being around people. I love helping people. I know I want to be in a respectable profession. So, but in that period of time where I'm like, you know, I'm coaching people, and also I'm in an environment where my personality is loved. Mm-hmm. Whereas, not saying that my personality in nurse is just different. It's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're in the hospital setting, and you have people relying, you know, it's just,
you're not building. I think part of the nursing, and this is also the part of the paramedic that I feel like my personality struggled with, is that you have people that you work with on a regular basis, but who you're actually working with are the patients.
Yeah.
And they're on a revolving door. You get them for an hour, a second, a glimpse of whatever, you know, their complaint is. Yeah. You know, that also depends upon what department you're on.
Right.
If you're in the ER versus the ICU, if you see the same people, and that can get exhausting.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think you and I probably relate in this, where you like to connect with people, and I can only imagine the paramedic scene is like, you're not, like, you're saving someone's life and then you ship them off to the hospital so that someone else can take care of them. So there's no building in that sense. So that definitely had a play in it, where it just, you know, I just wasn't happy, and I knew it. And but I kept, right, like, I'm not a quitter, so I have to graduate and I have to go through with it. But I always knew, I was like, you know what, I know that I'm not in the right field. I'm not impacting people the way that I want to. So when I graduated, and I didn't even take my NCLEX, I took a whole year off. And I literally was like, you know what, I'm going to give myself a chance, and I'm just going to full time into the at that time I was coaching and managing a studio. And I was like, I don't care what my family thinks. I don't care what people think, which was really hard, especially at that age too.
That's a big step.
It was, yeah, that was huge, because I was like just dealing with that inner conflict of like, I want to be, because I care what people think about me. I want to be respected, and I want to do something that, I mean, nursing's a great profession, you know, so. But then you know, if you didn't know me, it's like, oh, she quit nursing to run a boxing or a kickboxing studio. Like, people hear that and they're like I had so many people tell me, like, why would you do that?
They're like, you gave up on so much.
Yeah,
or
like, you went to school for this.
Yeah.
Like,
you wasted so much money. You wasted so
money,
much time.
yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
all that stuff. Yeah. And then, you know, you hear that from I love my parents, but you hear it from your parents, and it's like, okay, you know, shit, am I making the right? But, you know, I just had to literally, like, I remember looking myself in the mirror and like honestly, like, yelling at myself, like, is this your life or not? Like, are you living for other people? Like, or are you just gonna, you know, because if that's the case, start giving people money, because you're obviously just living your life for them and working for them or whatever. So I made the decision. Took a whole year off, did not take my NCLEX, which, if you are in nursing school, take your freaking NCLEX right after you graduate, because I had all that information go out the window. And then things didn't work out when I was at that studio, and I was like, you know what, let's get back, because I gotta make some money. So let me get back into nursing. And so I studied my ass off for three months and passed the NCLEX the first time, which is insane.
That's huge.
I will give myself some credit for that. I literally started crying at the testing center, because in that test I was like, you're totally failing. You're doing horrible. Your score is probably low, 100%. And those bad thoughts again, right? But I passed, and like, that was another big step for me with just like my mental health. It's like, dude, look at you.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing it, you know. And it's like, yeah, so that was another helpful thing with like the mindset of like, you work hard towards something. You tell yourself, you got this, you're going to freaking do it. So, and then I started working for St. Luke's, and I was in the OR, and this was around COVID too. So, you know, I was in the OR in the residency there, and then, you know, helping out in the ICU with all the COVID patients and stuff. So, and then that's a whole nother issue, you know, another thing in healthcare. It was just horrible. Like, you know, I have so much respect for the healthcare nurses and the profession that dealt with that. And, you know, and that's just in Idaho, right? Like, you know, I can only imagine. Well, I had friends who are nurses, and so that also helped with my decision of leaving too. I was like, you know, this is, again, I already had left nursing. I get back into nursing, and then I'm having these thoughts again, because I wasn't coaching at the time, but I was like yearning. I was like, oh my God, you know, I was going to other workout classes and just being around those people, the positivity, people wanting to change their lives. And like, I was like, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be in this industry making an impact. And it's also making me so goddamn happy in the sense of like, I can be this energetic person, you know, with a microphone, with music blasting, where it's like, and I was like, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. You know, I'm just gonna grind nursing, because, you know, I'm doing it. And I still actually enjoyed working in the OR, because the OR is actually very team oriented, because I was in orthopedic surgery. So I didn't hate that, but it was just the COVID and anyways. So I was like, yeah, you know, I'm just gonna work really hard, try and save up as much money as I can, and open up my own thing. That was always my mentality, is like, I know, again, that I was meant to be. And I literally woke up every morning like, hey, like, you know, your parents, your family, you're half Filipino. There's that stereotype. You're a nurse, like you're living it. Everyone's happy because you're nursing now. But I always told myself again, is like, are you really happy though? Like you're not. Yeah. So intentionally remind yourself of like what you want to do with your life, not anyone else's life. And every day wake up and do the things you need to do to get to that point. So I got back into the fitness industry. I didn't open up my own thing yet. I was at another boxing studio and just coaching. And then I went in the same position again where I was like nursing or this fitness thing, right? And then I struggled again because I had the opportunity to quit nursing and to run this gym full time. And then I went through those same thoughts like, oh my God, so you're not going to be a nurse again. People are going to tell you work so hard for this. You're quitting your nursing career to run a boxing studio. You're stupid, right? Yeah. I went through the same thing, but I still stuck to it. And I was like, hey, like, look at yourself in the mirror. Is it your life or is it their life? Yeah. No, it's your fucking life. So I first went part-time because I still was kind of like a little scared, and then I was like, I just fucking sent it and I quit. And then from there, it was the best decision I made for myself because I woke up every single day loving what I do, affecting people the way that I want to, impacting the community the way that I wanted to. And then nursing became just like I still, it's very respectable, and I even have it still in my little Instagram bio because it is still a part of me, and it taught me so much. And I really do see nursing as like the stepping stool to get me to where I was now, which is a completely different industry, but you take what you learn and stuff. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
There's so much of that to just unpack of decision making.
Yes.
And weighing two different scenarios of like, hey, if I continue down this road, nursing, this is what my life's going to be. And I can already tell that it's going to be miserable. Mm-hmm. Or I can step out into this other realm that maybe some people are going to judge me for. Yeah. And they're going to, say that I'm not making an impact or whatnot. But still, like you said, at the end of the day, it's not their lives.
Right.
And I think that is a great example of what it truly means to be your authentic self, is to literally look at yourself in the mirror and say, do what you fucking want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And not caring.
And not care.
Hard. Yeah.
It is the ultimate, like, I don't give a fuck attitude. And it's not that you're being mean about it. It's not that you're being rude about it. It's that if you don't do that, you're then being disloyal to yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
And seeing this, stability and loyalty from childhood to now, where you're finding that within yourself of like, you know what, I want to be loyal to myself and how I feel and where I want to go in life. And I think that is a huge win for you. Yeah. Like, and I love seeing that in people because it's going against the current also. You have to stick up for yourself and say, you know what? Like, I know that that's what you want me to do, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I know I went to school for that. That's the same thing with me and being a paramedic. I mean, I still struggle with that sometimes where I'm like, oh, like, people will ask me like, don't you miss it? I'm like, yeah, there's parts of it I definitely miss. Yeah. Like, I do, but am I meant for that role? No.
Yeah.
I truly believe that that role was supposed to be in my life for a amount of time to then get me to the next thing. Yeah. And have that knowledge, have that power, have that wisdom from what I learned from those experiences and take it. Yeah. You don't lose, like, just because I don't have that title anymore, it doesn't mean that you lose that part of you. Yeah. Like, that part of me will always be. Like, the knowledge doesn't just escape your brain. Yeah. Now, maybe some dosages and medication names do. Maybe that does. But like your instinct to react, though, your instinct to help. Yeah. And that's really where I think, you can see your story, and very similar to mine, is like, we want to be able to help people. Yeah. And most people in the world want to be able to help other people. It's just they have to figure out what it is that they want to help with. Yeah. Yeah. And that is a lost journey sometimes.
Yes. Yeah. But it's a journey.
It's a journey. Yeah. It's the process. It's the understanding of like, you know what? even if I did that and I didn't like it,
Mm-hmm.
that's important to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really important to know. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
Because then it will get you closer to what you do like doing.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's huge because, you know, we can be on this podcast right now and say like, yeah, live for yourself and make the decisions for yourself. And it's obviously different person to person, right? There's other influences, you know, I could like mothers or, you know, like you have other people that rely on you and stuff. So definitely don't want to put that down, but it is very easy to just say do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, sometimes it's like do it. Like if you don't, I think like with your podcast and everything, your message and stuff is about the mental health and what people go through and the decisions that you have to make. And it's of course it's easier said than done, but at some point I think everyone just has to remember that it's, you know, YOLO. What's that? Right? It's like you really do, and time is so short, but also the journey is so beautiful, and every decision that you make, every action that you take is gonna get you to wherever it is. You can fail.
Yeah.
And guess what? That was part of the fucking journey, baby. Right? Because then from that decision, and go back to my saying, you have two options. You either stand up and go do something with it and learn from it, or you stay sitting where you're at. And then you can totally stay in that journey too of just continue the day by, you know. And I think like so many people, which makes me sad, like go through this motion of like they hate their job, they hate their situation, they just hate. You know, even I talked to my mom about it recently. Like she hates her job, but she's like they call me Tintin. Oh, Tin, like I'm older, like I don't have the same fight or the same like drive that you do in your 20s. And you know, of course it's easier for me to say come on, right. but truly it's like every single, no matter how old you are, no matter the situation that you're in, no matter what you are going through, you genuinely do have the choice to pick yourself up or do something that's going to get you out of that situation. Even for like the young generation, it's you know they're not going through their big girl jobs or anything yet, but it's like I imagine, let's say if I put myself in my high school shoes with the drama, right, with the girls that you're hanging out with, or you know, or what you're looking at online, you do as a young person have a choice to not do any of those things that you're doing, right? Because it is going to impact you in some way, whether it's positive or negative. Both are worth it,
right?
I love this tangent.
I love that you're on this
dude. I go off sometimes, like
it's all good.
But anyways,
okay, tell us a little bit about the process of building your own studio.
Yeah.
Like how has that been? Because there are some, even with building the podcast and a lot of the transition that I have been in, and I mean, when I started this podcast, I just jumped off the ledge. I just started. Like I didn't have structure. I didn't have any, and I'm like, okay, if I'm going to maintain this, I need to set out my vision and my mission statement, and my core values. And like, I didn't get taught that as a kid, like even within our family, like we didn't have family core values or anything. I got introduced to that when I got into real estate. And so then now it's like in this transition, you're like, what, like you do get to build whatever you want.
Totally.
And that's really exciting, but that's also nerve wracking where you're like, but what do I want to build? How do I want to build this? How did you decide on building culture?
Culture, baby. You know, it's been seriously because I'm still in the building phase. Like I haven't even started the classes yet. So it's still just this like, these emotions are just so crazy right now. But I'm gonna be honest, just like you, I fucking sent it. Like anybody that tells you they know what they're doing when they start a new business, they're freaking lying. Okay. They do not know what they're doing until they do it. I mean, luckily, like obviously I've been in the fitness industry for, 7-8 years now. So I have a lot of experience and background through coaching, managing, leading, running studios and stuff. So that definitely like plays a big part into the person that I am and what I want to do moving forward. But for me with culture, the name itself, I realized that everything that I do, I'm so passionate about making the culture fun, even in this setting. Like there's culture being built between you and I. There's a relationship being built between you and I, and it's a huge thing for the brand is that everything, whether it's group fitness classes, whether it's networking, whether it's, you know, partnering with local wellness businesses in the Treasure Valley, the culture is what matters the most. And I really realized that just through being a leader, coaching people through their hardest workouts, managing teams, it matters how you treat people. It matters what you guys, I don't know, just the relationship aspect of it. And fitness is very people person, you know, it's all about how you have that relationship with people. But back to, when I first started the idea and the vision and everything, I kid you not, I woke up one morning because I actually was going to move. I recently was going to move, and then I made the decision. I was like, wait, I don't want to go yet. And I literally just woke up one morning. I was like, culture. And then I thought more about that. And then, you know, you start getting the paper and pencil out, and you start coming up with all these things. And then it just keeps going. And so I knew I built the brand around my passions and who I stand for as a person and how I want to impact the community. And that's what built the brand is it starts off of like you, right? So I knew that the passion for me was the relationships with people, how I affect people. And I obviously love fitness. And, so, you know, what culture does is we have different modalities of classes. Cause the other thing for me is, and I learned this after I was done with the basketball, is that you don't have to do just one thing. Right. And I think that's a big, I don't want to say issue, but something in the fitness industry is that you do one thing and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. When that's not realistic. And fitness is actually transitioning, in my opinion, to this wellness mindset. So that's why I called it Culture, the Wellness Collective, because it's a collective of people who care about the well-being of themselves, whether that's through fitness or whether that's genuinely through wellness. Yeah. But I'm actually trying to turn fitness into wellness, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And you know, you will see these big brands like Nike, they're rebranding, you know, Lululemon, they're not rebranding, but like everyone cares about wellness. And you know, these big training, the cold plunges, the saunas, the gua sha on your face, you know, like those all play into this lifestyle. So culture for me was like, I want to be a place where people can come to and not just do one thing and not just learn one thing or not experience one thing. So we offer boxing classes, Pilates classes, yoga, and strength classes, which in my opinion, those four modalities are a lot of different options for you, right? But they're things that bounce off each other. You know, maybe you're fucking pissed one morning and you're just like, I need to hit something. Right. I am gonna box today, right? And then maybe the next day I'm sore as shit from that boxing workout. I think a flow in a yoga class is gonna be perfect. You know, so that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the community, is offering, you know, like a one-stop shop for your wellness journey.
I can see that being so, like, well taken. I don't even know what the right words for this is. But basically, like, understanding that is that you are providing these different modalities, but it's also going to be me to listen to my body and say, hey, you know what? Today I don't have the capacity for this, but I have the capacity for this.
Exactly, yes.
And I think it is also showing people where you don't have to go 100% every single day, because that's not possible. That is truly how we get to burnout. Yep. And so you can still move your body. You can still get into a wellness state, because there's so many endorphins that get released. Like, there is a physical aspect to mental health. Yes. That is usually the number one thing. And because there's so much stress that gets stored in our body, we have to be able to move it out. It gets our blood going. Yep. Like, there's so many different incredible, you know, pros from it. Yeah. And it also, you know, whether that be like you're starting out, it's like, if you're just trying to go for a walk, go for a 15-minute walk. Yep. You may not be able to do 30 minutes, but guess what? You can do 15.
Exactly.
And if you can do 15, then you know what? Maybe tomorrow you can do 16.
Yes.
And that is where you start building your own resiliency. That's where you start building your own wins. That's where you start building your own confidence.
Yeah.
Those are all things that come back to your mental health and your well-being as a person and your quality of life that you're living.
Yeah. No, I freaking love that.
Like this morning, my yoga practice was shit. It was dog shit. But I told myself, and I was like, you know what? I still did it. And that's the thing, is it's a practice.
Yeah.
You also have to listen to your body. Yeah. I didn't feel like my greatest, but I still stuck through it.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my grit for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like an example of grit for me, where it's like, hey, I'm also going to show myself grace, because it's like, no, today I didn't put my head on the floor and put my legs up and all of these things that you're trying to get better at. Yeah. It's like, you know what? I can't, not today.
And I think that's the hardest, but the most beautiful thing about wellness, about fitness, because and that applies to what you just said, literally applies to your life, right? It's like, okay, I didn't do the dishes. Maybe I scrubbed one dish. I didn't put all of my dishes, which was me this morning, which is why I'm probably bringing this subject up. But, as a coach and in the fitness, it's like, I always tell people, the hardest part is showing up. Truly, and I actually love talking about this as a coach, because I know that there's so many people out there where it's the hardest thing for them is just getting up and going, right? To where then they let's say you're coming to one of my classes, and I acknowledge that, hey, hardest part was showing up, right? Now we're here. Okay. We're moving on from the next part. The next part of this is you continuing to show up for yourself. But it's going to look different for everybody. Someone is going to be a little bit more skilled in the practice than you are, but guess what? Doesn't matter, because you showed up for yourself, right? And yeah, you put your right leg up, but you didn't put your left leg up. Guess what? That right leg's up doing street pose. I'm learning yoga.
It is. I feel like yoga is one of those things that I always kind of got into, but then never stuck with. Yeah. I would do it, but I never stuck with it. I feel like I'm sticking with it right now.
Heck yeah.
And it's hot yoga, and so it is disgusting. Girl. It is literally actually disgusting how much you sweat. Wow. And then for me, something is okay, taking it to the next level is now you're in the sauna. Well, now let's go do a cold plunge in the shower. Ooh. And talk about how difficult that is, because it's you're not in there all at once. You're
but it's making you stronger for your day too, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things too, where it's so simple to say that. But then you fall out of it. Yeah. And, my coach, today, she's one of my favorite yoga coaches. Yeah. And several times recently, she's like, I see you. You're just beaming. I don't know what it is you're doing, but you're doing really great. And I was like, thank you for that. Yeah. Today, she probably was like, something's wrong with her. But that's fine. Yeah. Right? Because she allows for that space to know that it's our practice. Yeah. It's what we want to do. And I think people get so far in their heads of
what it has to look like.
What it has to look like, what it has to do. Guess what? Nobody's if I'm watching you in yoga, it's probably because I'm jealous that you can do something. I'm like, how the fuck do you do that? I want to learn
bending
that.
Like that. Yeah.
This one girl was like, oh my God, I didn't even know you could do that in this pose. And I was like, that was amazing. She's and she didn't have it. She just did it, and I was like, ooh, that's something I could work towards. So then it's now you're getting ideas from them. You're not judging them.
No, you're learning.
You're learning from them. Yeah. And I think we just default to we have to look perfect. We have to do it perfect. Yep. And if it's not perfect, then I'm just not going to do it. And it's well, then you're not going to do anything.
Yeah. And that's, and I think, I don't think anybody is ever going to get amazing at that either. No. Right? In the sense of and I'm a huge, I kind of just own your shit kind of person. Right. And it's owning that it's you're never, even in I've been boxing for, 8-9 years. I am nowhere near an amazing boxer. You know what I mean? Like, I know what I'm doing, obviously, but you're always going to get better at something. And we have to just completely just throw out the idea of like perfection. And that is so hard for people. And like, I know for myself, like that's your standard, is that you have to grind and be perfect and whatever. And there's no other option. Like, I tell myself that a lot. And sometimes it's in great situations and sometimes it's unnecessary. Like literally there's no other option but to succeed and be perfect or whatever. But it's not realistic. And that's where the burnout comes, you know? And I think this thought goes into, you know, because I think about it specifically for like the fitness industry, right? Where, you know, January is coming up and you already know people are going to, I'm actually still shook that people still say New Year, New Me, because I feel like it's dying a lot, but I still hear it. So, but when that comes up, it's like people are going to be so regimented, right? You're going to see the gyms are going to go up, the meal plans, all that stuff. And because you're going so freaking hard, you will hit that point where you plateau or where you fail. And guess what? It's fucking okay, right? Because I just literally with Thanksgiving, I just went through that right now. Like today was actually the first day where I felt like I got back on track with my own routine. And I don't know what it is, but popcorn and me right now are married. And like I just been eating like so much popcorn that night. That was my Thanksgiving meal. Popcorn.
Wow.
Not in a bad way. I enjoyed it. Well, actually I had some food and then I had popcorn after. Anyways, I'm going on my tangent. But my point is already owning the fact that you will fail.
Yeah.
What matters is the mentality and the mindset after.
Absolutely.
After you hit that failure point. So when you're doing your yoga, you suck right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you in your eye.
That
tree pose, that warrior 2 is not looking perfect. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. No, and I think it's literally just illustrating to people is like you can it's okay. It literally is going to be okay. Like that is not going to be the end of the world. And I think I come back to that where it's like this is not an emergency for yourself, but we kick ourselves into that fight or flight, that sympathetic nervous system response, and we make it this issue. Yeah. That really it's not an issue.
Yeah. It's not, my friend keeps saying, it's not that serious.
No.
It's not that serious. I mean, there are some times where it's a serious moment, but and honestly, it's still like, you know, I've been telling myself this now, like, I mean, obviously me opening this business is very serious, but I already, Tina, like I literally every morning, I'm not kidding, I wake up, I'm like, you are going to fuck up sometimes. What are you going to do about it? Yeah. It is okay. It's not that serious. You're still breathing. Yeah. You still have a roof you get to come under.
It's the gratitude.
It's gratitude.
It's gratitude. And in those moments where you feel like everything is crumbling, if you sit, this was something that I actually ended up teaching one of my coaching clients, the Grit, Grace, Gratitude, and something that I was just talking to you about, but that gratitude piece. Yeah. You can sit and you can talk about everything that you don't have. Yeah. Right? Like, I don't have a husband. I don't have this. I don't have that. Like, all of the things. But what is it that I do have? Yeah. What is it that the younger version of me worked so hard to get that I'm not being loyal to her? Yeah. And saying, you know what? You worked your butt off for that. Yeah. Like, I've worked my butt off for even just this studio. Yeah. I worked my butt off to have you come on. Yeah, you did. Those are all gratitude. Yeah. And for people listening, like, if you need to sit down for 5 seconds and take a breath and just say one thing you're thankful for. Yeah. Like, we just had Thanksgiving. Yeah. Did you actually, like, did people actually send, like, I'm so thankful for you? Or was it just like, happy Thanksgiving? Yeah. And I'm like, you know, like,
you just go through but I love that though. And I think it's something that, like, I feel like everyone talks about, right? Like the intentional stuff. What's your why behind what you do? Are you grateful? But those are seriously like the pillars of your mental health being shit or your mental health being good, or your situation being shit or not. Because if you do take that second, because you can change any atmosphere with how you perk up or what you tell yourself in your head. You know, like, even something super sad, the way that you say it is going to change the connotation of it, you know? And it's crazy because, like, right now in my head, I'm looking back and I'm thinking about how I was in my teens or just honestly recently. And the growth that I honestly want to be so like talk about and be so proud about towards myself is insane, because I was somebody, seriously, I would hear what you just said and be like, fuck off. Like you're one of those woohoo hee hee type of people, right? Which there's nothing wrong with those type of people, okay? But like I would literally hear that and be like, oh my God, you know?
Because do you think you had ever experienced what it actually is to have those intentions and to have that gratitude, where now you're like, oh, this is what they mean?
Yes. Yeah. I like just these past couple years have been the being intentional, being grateful. Because, you know, when you're, and in my situation particularly, like and young kids who go through the same thing, you're not probably mature enough yet to understand that, or you haven't had
your brain has not
it just doesn't develop, and it's okay. But you know, until you have these experiences, then you get it, right? It's like it's seriously, it's like when your parents, when you were younger, telling you like, oh, this and this is gonna happen, you tell them shut up, right? Yeah. But then you get to this point and you're like, oh, this is what everyone was talking about, or this is, you know. But and then even then, like, you got to see that as a beautiful thing too, right? Like you could even turn that into a negative thing and be like, oh, I wish like I told you earlier, I wish I went to therapy when I was younger. You didn't know what you didn't know, and that's okay, because guess who's in therapy now? Tina. And I love Brandy. But it's just looking like I'm seriously like kind of speechless a little bit, like genuinely looking back and I'm trying to even think of like when it clicked for me, but like when it clicks, it clicks, and it's just you continue to go on throughout your day being grateful for things, and when certain situations rise, even for me now, it doesn't affect me the way that it did a couple years ago, where that instance would have completely taken me down. But today I'm stronger, I'm more intentional, I'm more grateful for what I have, and that allows me to get closer to the dreams that I have, or to just be in that moment and not let it defeat you, you know, because it could be like, have you ever had those days where everything is shit? You hit all the red lights, you spill coffee on yourself, I don't know, everything's TV show is, you know, didn't record, everything is shit. And in those moments, you know, you're naturally just like, why is this happening to me? Why? Like, what did I do to deserve this? This is so horrible. This is so negative. But it's like, if you can be that type of person that sees those things like, okay, shit. Yeah. I have coffee on me. My show didn't get recorded tonight, but it is what it is. Like, sometimes it has to just be, it is what it is. And it's not that serious, right? Because you have two options, right? You can either just sit in your car and freaking bawl crying that you know, your new Lululemon outfit has coffee on it, or you can drive back home and just fucking change. It's honestly, it's sometimes it is as simple as that, and sometimes it's not. And the times that it's not, it's going to take longer for you to get to that point where it is going to be okay. But you have to be okay with that journey piece of getting closer to that okayness. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's definitely been a lot of incidences recently, even for myself, where I'm like, you know what, Mackenzie, I'm proud of you. Like, that would have taken you years to learn. Now it's taken you months to learn. Like, that is the grace that we have to give to ourselves of like, we are learning this life. Like, no person, if they're not learning, they're not living. And they're just in existence. And that's when they start spiraling downwards. And
or just going through the motions.
Going through the motion, and they're miserable. I mean, that's why so many people in our world are miserable. And they're trying to keep up with, you know, it really is the consumer mindset that these businesses, the government is trying to push down our throat. And it really does happen. And, you know, it doesn't need to be. We get to decide that.
100%. What's your, sorry, this just like randomly, because I think about like the message that I want to put out to the world, right? Whether it's on this podcast or even as little as like an interaction that I have with someone at the grocery store. Like, you think of the person that you want to affect, like, how do I phrase this? Like, what is your mission? Like, this, how do you want people to be affected by you?
Yeah,
and who is the person that is affected by you?
That's a really great question, actually, because
I'm like on your podcast. This is my podcast now, asking you questions.
So I think the biggest thing that I want people to truly know is that we do all go through hard times. Mm-hmm. And it is at those hard times that we need to be vulnerable and talk to people mm-hmm. and be able to help them help us.
Yeah.
Because if we don't tell them that something is hard, or maybe we're stuck on, in life of like, which way do I go? Yeah. What decision do I make? That's where that weight gets put on ourselves, and we're not allowing other people to use their also uniqueness mm-hmm. to be able to help us. Mm. And so I think for people to really understand that it has to be you to be able to ask for help.
Yeah.
We're not mind readers.
Right.
Like, we all say that, but we truly aren't. Mm-hmm. And we expect people to just know.
Yeah.
They have their own life going on.
Yeah, own shit, yeah.
They have their own shit and thoughts that they're trying to think of from who knows what.
Yeah.
And so it really building that confidence and courage in somebody mm-hmm. to be able to say, hey, like, this is what I'm going through.
Yeah.
Maybe I just need a vent. Maybe you know somebody that can help me. Maybe it could be you that could help me.
Yeah.
Like, but here it is.
Yeah.
And then what happens with that, and I've seen this and I've watched it happen, is that then you've kind of put this out into the world, and then that other person can now listen to what is going on, and maybe in their world they just talked to somebody and that needs this person mm-hmm. and now they've just connected those two.
Yeah.
And so it's this whole spider web of connections.
Yeah.
But to be able to start getting those connections, you first have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it's really scary. Mm-hmm. And it's really because people, that word specifically. And so I think changing that from being vulnerable is to be raw.
Yeah. Ooh. Raw thoughts, baby.
And what does that mean, right? And so breaking that down for people is to be raw. It means to be real, authentic, and willing to share.
I love that.
And so when you are those three things, mm-hmm. you can go back and say, okay, even if this person, say I tell you something and you just wanted to be a bitch and go behind my back and gossip about that, whatever, I'm not threatened by that because that is what I'm going through. Mm-hmm. That's your decision.
Yeah.
Now at this point, I know that you're not part of my life.
Damn. Facts.
Boundaries, walls.
Dude, that's like a whole nother thing right there. Boundaries. I love that. That's like, that is really where, and I totally just came up with that of like, maybe we need to not talk about vulnerability. We need to talk about how do we become raw. Yeah.
And then who really is, I would say like my avatar. I think it's ever evolving. Mm-hmm. Like recently, this last week, it's, and I think it's always been like, I love children. Mm-hmm. I just like, I have this innate love for them, and they're just so innocent. Mm-hmm. And even if they do wrong, they need to learn, right? You need to help guide them through those things. And so really right now, like the teens, the adolescents are like my sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, as a paramedic, the ones that impacted me the most mm-hmm. were the teens that took their own lives. Yeah. And so that being impacted on me, how can I then mirror that and impact them in a good way?
Yeah.
And so actually this last month in Ada County, there was 4 suicides. There was at one of the high schools 2 in one day. And so when I talk about this, like, and why it's the teens, and then, this past weekend, I see, somebody that she was a nurse. She and her husband worked as a police officer. I've grown up with them, their children. And, something got said about their son about, he will sometimes just tease about like, oh, well, I'm just going to go kill myself. And she's like, there's an ounce of that I know is not true. And then I look at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like look at how much possibility he has. Like he can't even see his possibility. Like we have to be able to, and this is, you know, something too, like we have to be able to tell people why they're important in our lives.
Yes. Yeah.
Like not just say like happy birthday or happy Thanksgiving. Like Matt over here, we were talking on Thanksgiving. Like I am so thankful for what you do for me.
Aw, Matt.
Like that helps people understand like, oh, I do matter.
Yeah.
Oh, I am valued.
Yeah.
When you tell people why you love them or you're excited to see them or have them be a part of something, you are now also like digging a little bit deeper into yourself of sharing. Like, why are we so afraid to tell people like that they're beautiful or they mean something to us or like, you know, and I was thinking about this driving the other day. I was like, I remember like so many times my ex saying like, I know I'm not like the best at telling you. And I'm like, but why?
But why? Yeah.
But why?
Yeah.
Why is it so hard for you to give somebody a compliment?
Yeah. Well, I think that right there is that person not being able to be raw and whatever the issue is with them or what they can't break out of yet is that their journey right there. But it is frustrating, right? Like I hear it in you when you like you talk about it where it's like because you already know that it feels good and it's genuine and it's okay to express these emotions, that it's so frustrating when somebody else can't because you know how good it feels for you and you know how good it's going to feel for them. Yeah. You know, and I think that's where it's hard as people in our positions in industry where it's like you just want to help people, right? And it gets frustrating for us at times, which I think, you know, people like us, we need to talk about too, and how it affects our emotions too. And like, you know, like I know for me, like I'm training somebody and they can't get to that one extra rep or they can't do that, you know, what I'm asking them to do. But I know if they just were vulnerable or raw and just worked through the hard things, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, it would feel so good for them at the end, right? And I think for the person who's not on our side, who's going through and trying to get to this point, it's just what we talked about before. Reminding yourself of where you want to get to and the options, right? You have two. We get close to that point. And then when you get to that point where you can be vulnerable and talk about the raw emotions, there's going to be something else that you're going to have to work through.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
That's life. Like, it's literally just new levels every single time. And that is sometimes we're ready for the next lesson and we're like, all right, cool, like I feel like I've gotten this one figured out, right? And I'm on for another one. Or there's sometimes I'm like, I don't want another lesson. I want to break.
You're like, just take a second like let's just
can
relax,
you just like not challenge me? But then I think I'm like, no, I'm getting challenged because it's like this thing that I tell myself. It's like, I'm getting challenged because I'm so fucking good.
Yes, no, but honestly, like this is what's good about like where that mentality is at, is because even though like let's say you're not at your most challenging point, but guess what, you're still getting challenged because you want to be challenged so hard that by you not being challenged at that point is frustrating, right? So it's just crazy. Like you know, I think about now, I get to that point where everything I do now is I see it as that intentional thing, and sometimes I get frustrated at that where like people will tell me, dude, can you just not be that type of person right now? And it's like, yes, I can. But guess what? Me not being that type of person is me getting better still. It's just, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's always like a battle, but which is so fun about life. And if you see it like that, then everything you do is intentional. And I think we talked a lot about that, is the intentionality of things. And it's crazy because, again, I used to hate that shit. I used to hate that word. I was like, ugh, snooze, like, shut up. Not life isn't all, you know, grass is greener, whatever. But it's like, no, like, it's not that serious. And like when you get to that point is so beautiful. Yeah. It's just like the gratitude that comes, and even when you're not in that state, that I think like when I asked you like who's your target audience, or like what are you trying to do in this world, and like as you were talking, I was like, it was inspiring me to like, you know, think about that for myself in the sense of like, okay, because again, being intentional, who do you want to impact, how do you want to make people feel, and like specifically like who, you know? And I think like for me, because of my industry, it's really anybody, you know, which I think is like beautiful. And I feel really like lucky to be in the position that I am, that I can affect anybody who wants to be affected. Right.
Yes.
And that's the other thing too.
Before we wrap up, I think this is something that I've had to learn, because I know not everybody is ready for what we can provide.
Yeah.
And something also that I would say that like really annoyed me was like, you do have to be the lighthouse, like where you get to shine your light, you get to tell people what you do, and it is up to them to come to you.
Right.
And I think there's so much, I know in past times where I want to be the one to go out and like save these little people, right? But you actually have a bigger impact when you are steady, when you are this big, bright, you know, shining star, and they come to you.
Right.
And it is then they have already decided they want to change. They already decided that they want what you give. Yeah. And, you know, something on that is like, I have gone back to people that I know I've impacted, and I've asked them like, what is it that made you, you know, have a change, or how did I impact you? What did you take away? Yeah. What did you learn? And you start, I mean, that is like the true testimonials, right? But it's also the data that you just start gathering from people, or listening from people, or asking them, or saying like, you know, I think ever since I was a young girl, I really did care what people said about me behind my back. And I always wanted it to be good. Yeah. And so, you know, like when you can truly know that what you're doing is good in the world, and even if you do mess up, it's like, but who are you at your core? Yeah. Who is that person? And I would much rather somebody say like, well, what was going on? Like that doesn't seem like Mackenzie. Like, let's check in on her. Let's do this, or, you know, whatnot. But it is, and it's life. Yeah. But all right, tell us how we can get in contact with you. I think we could talk all day. I know, but you and I were electric.
So you can follow me on Instagram, the Tina P. Culture's Instagram is culturetwc. If you want to check us out, Instagram, our website, culturetwc.com. And we aren't officially open yet, but our soft launch is December 11th. So it's coming. But yeah, so again, we got, you know, boxing. I'm like looking somewhere like I'm supposed to look like I'm doing a commercial, but boxing classes, yoga classes, Pilates classes, and strength classes. And the other thing I didn't touch upon is we also network with the community on providing like different wellness businesses to one, promote Boise small businesses, and then also to give our members opportunities to just learn different things about wellness, you know, like those cold plunges and the saunas and all the wellness stuff. So we do a lot of partnerships as well. So if you want to check out Culture, we're for anybody who wants to kind of just learn and get better and find a community. Yeah. And I'd love to kick your ass in the process.
In a good way. In a good way. Yeah. In a good way. Yeah. Well, Tina, thank you so much for coming today. I know I appreciate you and just what you're trying to, you know, change. You're actually trying to change the culture, which is really incredible to see, because I think that's what we need, and we need a healthy culture for people to be able to come and express themselves and get their own struggles out. And so I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I had the best time. Yay. Love your energy. Can't wait.
Awesome. Listeners, thank you so much for another episode with me. Definitely check out all of the other episodes that we got. We have people from John Mattingly. We have Rob Kelly, the doctor. There are so many different episodes that really hit different people, and the diversity is so welcomed. So if you are thinking about coming onto the podcast, please reach out to me. I would love to have you have a conversation and see how we can make the world better. Love you guys. Bye.